It's just I had to do Carrie's. I couldn't do Carrie's live, so I saw hers recorded.
Ah, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We are live on Facebook. We are now recording. You can record it too if you want to. That's absolutely fine. Good evening to my friend Philip Dykes.
Good evening, Kath.
How are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
Good. Yes, I'm good, thank you. I'm just going to mute everybody else. No offence to anybody, but you sometimes get a bit of reverb, don't you, when everybody else is unmuted. So I know that you're sitting in your brand spanking new office there in sunny Scotland.
It is sunny Scotland. In between the rain showers, it's very sunny, very warm too. The joke in Scotland, when we have sun, it's our summer. So yeah, absolutely making the most of it. And yes, new office as well. So good.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I know that you've been to our house and we've been to yours, and we've been out socially as well as in the work that we all do, all four of us. And I know that you've been involved in what you're doing for quite a number of years now. So when you were a child, did you have experiences that were unexplained, Phil?
Wow. That's a question to start off with. Absolutely, yes. And there's quite a few I've talked about quite openly, but it's only over the last few days where we've had a little bit of time off and been talking about it that a lot of memories have come back. Memories, it was through a contact working with somebody that evoked a lot of memories, as that's what mediumship does. But I remember being at my grandparents' house, sat in the main hall corridor, and my grandmother and grandfather used to live in a huge house in Wigan, and they used to have a crystal chandelier. And I was mesmerised by the colours as the sunlight hit it and shone on the walls. So I was fascinated by shiny things, bright things, and they used to have antique stalls of jewellery and things like this, one of the many things my grandparents did. So I was always interested in lights, but it was quite funny that interest turned out to be something else, because sometimes I'd sit with them and I'd see colours. Now, they weren't spiritualists, they didn't know, or as far as I knew, they didn't know. It came out later that they did. But again, we see colours rising from them, the auric field, and it was interesting to watch. And I was always very close to my grandparents. So I stayed with them. I came from that family that separated, so I went at weekends and stayed over quite a lot. So they didn't discourage it, but they let me root, they let me rummage, they let me go in the cellar and the sheds and find, because they knew I was an inquisitive child. But I didn't know they knew how inquisitive, because they watched me quite intently. So there was experiences where they overheard me talking to people where there was nobody else in the room, like my parents at the time. So there's lots of things that happened. But as a child, you don't know about it. You just think it's normal. So you mention it at times, and it was never discouraged, but it was never encouraged either. So even though I mentioned it, I get that raise of eyebrow, that look, then just smile and move away. But it's many years later now, in the last probably 10 years, I found out through my own dad that my grandmother was clairvoyant. My grandfather was very much a believer of the spirit world, even though they didn't go into the religion. They had their own thoughts on it, and my dad even has had experiences as well. And it's easy to talk about, but actually living through it was a lot harder, because they were from civil engineering backgrounds, teachers, logical minds, rational minds. So it wasn't the sort of thing that they would encourage. But my grandfather used to have a study, and I used to love old books, and even now I love the smell of them. Don't like reading them, but I like the smell of them, sort of thing, the old books. And I remember I used to get fascinated with some of the books in there, especially the pictures. And as that transpires, that's what's helped my clairvoyance incredibly over the years, because pictures tell 1,000 words, tell a story. So it's going back to those days where I was able to feel things, see things, and occasionally hear things. And especially when I used to go home, when we used to live in a big house as well at the time, where there was 3 cellars. First 2 cellars, no problem. You go into the back cellar, it was, oh no, not on your Nelly. I'm not going anywhere near it. And sometimes my stepfather at the time used to leave my bike in there. So I had to run through, grab hold of it and out the door. So you can imagine 30, 40 foot cellar in length, probably 2 steps and cleared and out sort of thing. So again, there's this sense of knowing something's there, but not really understanding it. And that was really the story of my childhood, where my stepfather used to sit on the steps listening to the conversations. When I was put to bed early, I never slept because I never wanted to be alone. Sometimes the old families where they all used to share their own the bed and everything else. Well, it was me and two brothers, and we were put in one room to try and help me, sort of thing. So it was a case of then in the middle of the night, used to get people sitting on my bed. So even though I didn't see them, I knew the physical presence was there. And as that child, that superhero, that the duvet's bulletproof, so you're trying to hide and keep away. So lots of experiences, but because I'm not from a spiritual family, I didn't have that understanding of it. I was from a Methodist family, brought up through the Methodist schools, at a weekend with my father when I used to visit. But I was always inquisitive, because even when I went to the Sunday school, I was always a little bit disjointed, if you will, or a little bit encouraged, because I wanted to be in where God was. There was something to being in that church, listening to the preachers, or as my dad put it, and stepmother at the time, talking to God. And I thought, why can I not talk to God? Why can I not go in there? And I remember taking an opportunity to make a run for the door to get into the service, and I thought I got away with it until it was about 5 minutes into the service, and I just leaned up above the pew just to take a look, and I saw my dad's face there. But I heard a lady speaking, and I thought to myself, that's not God, that's my stepmother. And I found out at that point she was a Methodist preacher. So it's almost like been a curiosity, but not knowing, because it was never encouraged. Even now my dad talks about the spirit world, but not in the way of a religion, because he's from the Methodist background, and that's fine and well. But he's told me about experiences he's had, clairvoyant images, experience of actually physically seeing the spirit world, and even some of the strange experience we actually share. And when he shared it with me, I was very emotional, because it's a sense of somebody acknowledging that this is real, this is true, because I came from that background of engineering and mining and all that men's world, of teaching and everything else, as the family was. It was never really talked about. So when my dad shared it, it was a very emotional time, because it showed me that ability was there. It wasn't me that had lost my mind or having episodes. To cut a long story short, there was a couple of doctors' visits to make sure I was fine and well. But again, it was one of the doctors, Mr. Wright, who said, have you ever thought about going to a spiritualist church? And even now, it doesn't get really talked about back then, but there was lots of episodes, lots of activity around me as a child, even where my mum said we need to move house. So we moved house several times, but the happenings kept on happening. So again, even where I remember a conversation where I was listening to people, well, if you take the roof off, did the spirits all go? And it's all these strange things that you hear as a child. But again, it sort of makes it normal for us, a normal understanding of how things transpired, how natural it was as a child, and how it was never discouraged, but never encouraged either. So yeah, very aware of the spirit world at a young age.
That must have been very difficult for you to deal with all of that, with nobody else really understanding, particularly from your perspective, being a child, possibly being frustrated and confused about it, which you would be naturally, wouldn't you? What on earth is going on? And nobody could answer those questions for you.
That's correct. I think the word that springs to mind at the time with certain events would, I'd probably use the word frightening, because you got your child, 5 years old, people sitting on the bed, and you can physically feel the bed go down, and you're wondering to yourself what's happening. And like I said, the duvet is bulletproof, but they're still there. And my stepfather, like I said, he would be outside the door listening to the voices, and some of the voices were recognised as my mum's father I never met. Mm-hmm. Some of the names, as we talked and we heard, things were put into their place. But again, as that child, you don't know what do you do with it. And for a long time, even through my teenage years, it was dismissed, because I just know things. I'd just come across things, and people would say, how do you think I'm going to do that? And I just get this feeling, and it's almost like a tingling as I said it, you'll win, you'll come first. And people are like, yeah, don't be daft, I'll never do that. Because the human mind says that we're able to accept negativity more than positivity. So paying somebody a compliment, they don't want to accept it. But if you say, you're going to be rubbish, they'll take that wholeheartedly. So again, these little things, and there were so many synchronicities as I look back, that that intelligence was showing even then, but again, still not understanding it through my teenage years. And the funny thing is as well that my mum's still here, bless her, shielding at the moment. She used to have mediums coming around to the house, and I never knew. People like Vera Higginson from local Spiritualist Church, very well known. And she'd come in, and I think it was about 13 or 14. In fact, no, I'll be older. I was about 16, just started a summertime job. And because I was working outside all the time, I kept on repeatedly getting styes in my eyes. And she came up and said, "Oh, I'm a healer." And I thought, I'll do anything to see if it goes. But the moment she put her hands over my eyes, all of a sudden this experience happened where I could see so clearly, but not through my physical eyes. It's almost in my mind, the clairvoyance opened, and I could see her and who she was, and I know she had a son in the space. It just all came flooding in, and it actually worried me a little bit. I thought, what's actually happening? Do I need help? But again, after a while, I found out she's a medium, and we had a bit of a conversation. So there was a little bit of education there from her that made it a little bit more tolerable and understandable, and that it was natural. But most of my childhood was having experiences like that where I couldn't explain, that I didn't fully understand. And because it wasn't normal, I'm from Methodist, and a normal family, what was this? What was going on? So, and again, even in the property we lived in, where my stepfather used to sit outside the bedroom door listening, even when he was in on his own and we were all in bed, you just hear the footsteps, and he used to come running in, which one's awake, to tell us off, sort of thing, but we're all fast asleep, or I'd be sat there under the duvet sort of thing, and I'd either get told off and told not to be out of bed, and I'm thinking, but I've not done any of this. But yet you could hear. But then we used to have visitors to the house, and they could hear these physical reports, raps, tappings, and different things. And we later found out that house used to be an old post office, so the raps and the taps were the postage stamps and everything else. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and an interesting journey, an episode really to look back at the childhood, because a lot of things then were inherent and quite visible, but not knowing about it, who would? So interesting journey.
Very interesting. And so you leave school, you start work. What did you do?
I've got to be honest, I took
You've had a few jobs, haven't you?
I have had a few jobs. I've had a few jobs. I used to, the main job I had for 29 years was in horticulture. I used to work for a landscape company that was attached to a big housing association. And I started at the bottom as a seasonal. That's what I said before, when I was 16 sort of thing, that's where I started. So did a year as a seasonal, then I was taken off my work ethic because I was a hard worker. And I climbed that ladder quite progressively, where I ended up at the end on the 29th. You've been a contracts manager for them. So again, there's a real journey there, but I used to love it, being outdoors in nature, surrounded by beauty, meeting people, interacting with people, and having time to actually think and reflect. And it's only over the last few years where I've really come to take in how much I've enjoyed that, and how much personal growth I went through in them 29 years, and how much life I've lived through those 29 years, and experienced so much, and not all being wonderful, not all being fantastic, but life as it is, and it creates you to who you are. So yeah, I used to love working outdoors. There was big teams of lads. We used to have a lot of fun, get up to mischief, but as long as the work was done, absolutely fine, sort of thing. So it was like a family in a way. And because we all knew each other, that company used to travel across the UK to different areas. So we got to know a lot of people, got to know a lot of places. So it was very experiential, and how can I put it? Put me in touch with different communities, different ethnic backgrounds, all kinds of things that really opened my mind to different ways of life. And even when I look back now, I see so much of what I craved or desire now in my life, or what I've got now, that I think those are the things that I noticed. So it's really been enriching, that journey.
I bet it sounds it. And when you first started to, if you like, uncover even more your mediumistic abilities, what do you think the gap was between when you were aware of the spirit world, even if you didn't recognize it as such as a child, to when you actually started to truly unfold it?
Oh, I don't think as a child you'll ever fully understand it, and I don't think you've got that maturity to really understand what it is. And it's only when I think you've lived life, experienced life, you start to get a grip or a look into it, that you start to realize that the full capability and what actually it is. Because I still remember the day I walked through the doors of a spiritualist church back in 2005, and that was Horwich National Spiritualist Church. And I remember walking in thinking, what are people going to think of me? What are people thinking as I walk through the door? What am I going to expect? What's going to happen? Am I going to be lynched? All these things, because it's the unknown. But there was a moment as I went through the door where I felt like being at home. And all of a sudden I looked round and I saw people that I'd already known from these places I've worked. All the schemes that I worked on, all the properties I looked after. And even as I went to meetings, I thought, I know these people from work. So in a strange way, it was eye-opening, because I thought, this is normal. This is a way of life. And I sat there, and I remember sat at the back. I thought, keep out of the way, because there wasn't many people in. I thought, keep out of the way. And it was almost like as I sat down and the chair creaked, everyone just turned and looked at me, and I thought, oops, okay. So again, but if we look at that, I think as you get older, that maturity of life helps you understand things. And I think that's when it really started to dawn on me. There was something to all these experiences, all these things that had happened. And it really made me go back to that childhood to look at all these things that had happened, all the experiences of them sitting on the bed, seeing the lights, being able to know things and sense things and presence. All of a sudden there was clarity, there was understanding. And I still remember the medium of the day, and bless him, he's in the spirit world now. It was a gentleman from Liverpool called Ian Clark. And I remember him, and he said, I need to speak to the medium, the gentleman right at the back. And as you do, you go, oh, who's at the back? You start looking around, and he says, no, you. And I'm like, yeah, you've lost the plot. I'm not a medium, I'm here for the first time. And for about 20 minutes, he couldn't get away from me. And he gave me the most evidential contact I've ever had. And that was my grandfather, who I was very close to. And I mean, it was full description, name, jobs, you name it, sort of thing. It was all there. And I was thinking, there's something to this. How can he know that? And he left me with, and I will see you working, young medium. And I'm like, you've got that bit wrong. You've certainly got that bit wrong. But I think it opens you up to a different way of living and looking at things once that realization happens. It makes you take stock of your life, makes you look at life and all the experiences you've gone through, and change the mindset of things weren't purposely done to cause you ill will or hurt or anything. They were just experiences we learnt from. So that journey, I've got to be honest as well, I don't think until I walked through that church doors at 2005, I would have ever been ready to actually do this work. So I think it's important that it happened then, because I was going through massive changes in my life. I'd just gone through a divorce. My world had been turned upside down. Things and family and friends, as they do through those situations, don't take sides, so you feel very alone. So again, there's that sense of personal growth. What's happening? Where am I? I'm in the wilderness. So I think at that point I was ready to look at the ability, but also importantly me as well, to understand who I was, all the things that I'd learned and happened in my life, to really take stock of them. And people even then used to say to me, you're older than your years, because I had a maturity about me. And they used to say, well, it's like you're having a midlife crisis. And I used to laugh and say, no, I've got a few years left till that happens, till I get to that point in my life. But again, there's just this sense of knowing now, I didn't at the time, that experience of growth and questioning that maybe some people will probably say is the worst time of their life, and I won't wish it on anyone, actually makes you take stock and look at what's important in life: children, wife, family, and the quality of life, that balance that you have. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have 3 wonderful children. Lucas, my youngest one, to Bethany, who's 20 now, the oldest sort of thing. I'm very blessed. I've got a beautiful, very intelligent wife as well. So life's turned full circle. So life has become what I always wanted it to be. So that journey has been enriching, but also through a personal development side, understanding things. I would say probably only in the last few years, all those pennies have really dropped into place, what life's about, even to the ability of mediumship, what it's about, not to be seen, not to be heard. It's about doing the service. It's about spreading that word, planting, even going back to the horticultural days, planting that seed, letting it germinate, letting that photosynthesis take place as the roots grow and everything starts to develop and the sapling grows into the tree. So again, there's different stages we can relate to that job that I had that made me think so much, the different processes of life. So again, looking at things and understanding things now as I do brings that maturity. And I'd probably say over the last 5 to 10 years, that growth has been quite substantial. And I've only now that I believe in the ability I have, that it should be practiced. It's been a long journey, if you will, to fully develop. And I don't think I'm fully developed yet. And I don't think I ever will be. I think it's a long journey and there'll be always more lessons to learn. So I think it happens, that development or understanding of the spirit at the right time. And it might be a cliche, but I think if you listen to everybody, it came into the life at the right time and presented itself. I don't believe in one way, and this is my opinion, that if somebody develops younger, they're a better medium than somebody develops older, sort of thing. I don't think there's a difference. I don't think God says, oh, let's start them off younger, they'll do better than he will when he's older, sort of. I think there's just the right time for it.
I think sometimes the added bonus of being an older, not a child, but an older medium, for the congregation's sake, is the experience of life. You know, I know that Gordon Higginson was a child medium, and I know that he would not do addresses for many, many years because he didn't feel he was capable of doing them. He didn't feel he had anything to tell people because there was people sitting there maybe 4 times his age, and what can I possibly say to anybody who is older? Of course, he had a wonderful life experience and childhood upbringing, but also quite harsh. So if I look at you, when I first met you, you were not as confident as I think most people would say you ought to have been, because quite clearly you've always been passionate about mediumship. You're passionate about people receiving that healing, receiving that help, and that you can be the key to unlock that. But I also know that in them early days when we first met you, the very first demonstration you did at Longton, I know, and there was a certain person sitting in the congregation as well, Mr. Jacobs.
Yeah, I remember he pulled the chair out into the middle and went, and I thought, oh my God.
I just thought I'd remind you of that, Phil.
Yeah, I've not
because
forgot.
When you went onto the platform, he wasn't there.
Correct.
And when you'd sat down and sorted everything out on the platform and turned round, he was sitting there with his arms crossed, how he does, as if to say, come on then, Mr. Dykes, prove it to me. And I do think, didn't you go to him and give him a contact?
To be honest, I can't remember. If I did, I would have been nervous. But that's the thing. If we do, we do. I have given him contacts, and you know what he's like. Doesn't make it easy for you. But again,
sitting next to him, and at the end, he turned to me and he said, "He's not bad, is he?" So that is praise indeed.
It is praise indeed, really. He's never told me to my face. So again, it's nice.
Well, now you know. And what is it, 8-9 years on, or something like that?
Something
it
like
must
that,
be that long ago since we very first met. But your passion for giving the evidence as it should be given, your passion for not fooling people or trying to trick people, your your passion for honesty and truth has always shone through. And I think that anybody who knows you and knows you even a little bit, they don't have to know you well, would instantly get that you and Kerry are very passionate about getting it right, not for you, but for your recipients and for the spirit world. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly, and I'll pay you later for it. But again, no, absolutely. Joking aside, it is really important. The way that I grew up, the ethics that were installed in me, even from walking through the door at Horwich National Spiritualist Church, and I met a gentleman that night who was very pivotal in my development really early on, Mr. John Gilbert. He was a healer, and he went through a lot of things with me, and I thought, this makes a lot of sense. It's almost like being home within my family, because my family were teachers, public speakers, all kinds of things, jobs with high pro. So that integrity has always been there. That real genuineness and honesty is there as well. And even where now, I mean, I've received contacts and I've thought to myself, I don't feel the spirit world, and I'm not calling them or being derogatory to other mediums, but when I've experienced it, it's left a little bit of something missing. So I've looked at that side of things and thought, you know what, this is about healing, this is about bringing a truth through, this is about bringing their story through, nothing to do with me, the responsibility of delivering that, getting it right. And this is why we check things so much as we work as that medium, that we're in the essence of the communicator. Even before it leaves the mouth, we're checking, is this right, does this go together? It's really important, because if I ever go to the spirit world and somebody brings me through to my wife Kerry, I want to express how much she's changed my life. I want to express how much I love her. I want to express what a difference she's made. But I want to be me. I want it to be from who I am. She knows me inside out. So again, having the responsibility of bringing these contacts or people through these real lives, the evidence of their life, is more important than the medium as they work, because the spotlight's on the medium, is on the contact, not the medium. Should never be. Yes, we can enjoy it and be full of joy as we deliver it, but I forget about myself because it's all about them. So that integrity, and even when I look back at the journey where it started 2002 to 2003, even today, I've looked at the different avenues of work that I've gone into. It's never been about the limelight. It's always been about the service, spreading the word. It's never been about, look at me. It's never been about, oh, he's doing well. The situations I've never been comfortable in. Like you said, I wasn't the most confident. And when I look back at that journey, I think to myself, I'm not surprised. Even from a young child with events in my childhood all the way through, never been confident. And this is why we do believe as well that personal training or personal development goes hand in hand with mediumship, to understand it. And like I said, over the last couple of years, I really do understand it now, through taking a form of coaching that I now practice, changed the view of life, changed my thoughts, got me to really understand myself, all the triggers and issues, that now I can be me and accept and be proud of who I am, not egotistically, but in a way, I've worked for this, I've worked all my life, I've done the best I can. We all make mistakes, that's how we learn, but I've made the best of my life and I want to be the best I can be, not in an egotistical way. So when you stand up on that rostrum, you represent the spirit world, you're an ambassador for the spirit world, you're talking about the principles, the ethics, the code, the morals. And I always remember one of the first demonstrations I ever did, and I did it without a tie. My first contact was for the president of a church, and I remember bringing her mum through, and her mum was a medium, and the first bit of evidence I got wasn't for the president, was a ticking off for me, because what she said, you're not wearing a tie. And ever since, I've always worn a tie, because she says, you're representing me. So again, I've had the spirit world teach me, prompt me, educate me to the etiquette, the manners, the representation. And even when we train people or work with people online, in face-to-face before COVID, it's all about the ethics, it's all about the morals, it's all about healing, it's all about the compassion, it's all about the service. It's letting them know that they will never be the celebrity. It's always about, yes, you'll go and travel hundreds of miles for a £10 and a cup of tea and a digestive if you're lucky, sort of thing. But it's about how you can touch somebody's life through that evidential truth. So that for me, the more evidence there is, the better. And the evidence can be objective, can be personal, but there's a third element where we want to bring the presence and power of the spirit world in as well. And that's something that was taught to me by a gentleman you've already mentioned, which is Mr. Paul Jacobs, God love him. No, he's got a heart of gold, even though that night he did this in the middle of the demonstration. And I've got to give a big thank you to him, because he's responsible for a big part of my journey. He was the first one that gave me an opportunity and a break to go and demonstrate in a different country. And he said, there you go. Like I said, I believe in you, do it. And in a way, all my life built me for that moment, because everyone was so busy. First time and experience of it, I was on my own, as they said, as Gordon used to say, sat on the nest doing the private readings, then getting up to demonstrate, people from different languages talking around. So uncomfortable, but yet so comfortable as well, because that's my world. So I just got on with it, and over the years it's built the confidence and to travel. And probably one of the biggest moments in that confidence building was when I was in Canada. I know we've got people on there. I got a phone call from my mum. I think it was about halfway through, and she said, son, I'm so proud of you. You really are making something of your life, and I love what you're doing. Don't understand it, but I love what you're doing, because you seem to be helping a lot of people. And I remember for about an hour later, I still had tears in my eyes, and even now I well up a little bit.
Yeah, that is so
but I'm
nice.
not a softie. Yeah, I'm not a softie. I don't cry. But again, it was a big pivotal moment. But even just those few words really made it more important, because she really opened my eyes even further, that we're helping so many people. And that visit, I made so many friends, and people were so welcoming. And I think I'm very lucky for what's happened within my mediumship, that I've got to see parts of the world, but more importantly, I've got to see and meet some wonderful people, real. And the beauty of it is as well, I'm still learning. I'm still developing. I'm still learning from other people that I meet. They've all got their own stories within spiritualism. I mean, you've interviewed people like Janet and Jackie and Paul and Simon. Those people I respect, and those people I've either been under the tuition of, where I've turned up in classes and things when I'm in tuition. So again, it's watching those people, seeing the craft and years they put in. But because I've been mature in years, I've got it. I mean, my first introduction to those kind of mediums was Glyn Edwards, and all the first words I remember, and probably a lot of people will remember how he used to say it, where he said, my boy. And it's just like, oh, okay. He's looking at me, and he'd come to the front. And I always remember, because I made a right fool out of myself, because he said, so you're here to learn? And I went, yes. And it was a private workshop. There was about 30, 40 people, and it was organised by a Peter Wilson, I think it was.
Yeah.
Went back now to about 2004, something like that. And I remember stood there, and he says, right, so what do you feel? And I'm thinking, oh, I just feel I'm drawn to that gentleman there, and I just want to say new beginnings. And he just said, is that it? And I said, right now, yes, because I never stood in front of anybody. I never done anything. And it was within the first probably hour, and he was talking all these wonderful things that were going over my head. I'm thinking, I'm in the right place, what's happening? And it sounded so wonderful that I was, in a way, I was mesmerized, because he had that craft, he had that way of speaking, and the way that he came across. So when he said, come up and this is what you're going to do, I'm thinking, I have no idea what to do here. I'm totally green to this. So I just said, I just feel I'm with that gentleman there. I feel there's new beginnings, and that's all I got. And he says, is that it? And I said, yes. I said, and I explained I'm new to it. And he just stay there. And I said, it's almost, sir, like I'm building the rest of my life. And the gentleman said, yes. And to me now, I know that was psychic, but then it was just something that came into my mind. But I remember watching him demonstrate that night, and my jaw was on the floor, because I've never seen mediumship. I've been to a few churches and seen the local mediums, and I thought they were wonderful. So I saw this gentleman, this guy, so with his elocution, the way that he held himself, and I still remember his head and his arms were going, and I'm thinking, my God, this is wonderful. And I still remember the contact. He said, I've got your father, and this is where he lived, and this is where and he was just going through it so methodically. And I was like, this is real. This is what I've been looking for. This is that. Then I remember the lady that said, well, that was boring. And I thought, boring? I thought it was magnificent. Well, it wasn't entertaining enough. It wasn't. So I got an early insight into what people thought and were looking for. But he struck a chord with me. And I think I met him once on another seminar very shortly and very quickly after that, but again, still very green. So that was my proof that mediums did exist, that mediumship was real, that really was a craft and an art. And I remember seeing that, and even today, and I was introduced to Paul Jacobs, I think it was a couple of years after that. Yeah. And I watched him, and it was even better than that. It was just the evidence kept on coming. And I took Kerry not long ago. She'd probably kill me for saying this. It wasn't Longton. And she put her hand on my shoulder. She said, it's like a steam train. It doesn't stop coming. That evidence, it just comes. And I said, now you understand why I talk about him and relate to the teaching so much. So when I was introduced to Paul at Stansted, where I was asked to be in his week, and there's this gentleman tearing strips off everyone, but as he was, but I actually saw him in a different way. He's got a heart of gold, and he loves what he does. He's passionate about it. So he taught me colour. He taught me all kinds of things on that week I was there. And I remember somebody saying to me, Wednesday's the crying day. Tuesday, I was flooded to tears. I was packing my bags. I was going home. And my mediumship had been what I thought was mediumship, was not mediumship. I'd been doing it wrong. So, but it took me a while to get my head around it. But then the penny started to drop with it. So that great influence there as well. So again, there's always been things that have happened, but that intention to the way that I work and the way that Kerry works as well has been instilled by people like Paul, by Glyn, seeing them demonstrate, by Janet and Simon very early in me, that I thought that's how I want to be. And even today, I'm still in awe of these people. I know they're good mediums, they're lovely people. I'm not saying they're special, but they're lovely people, and they're dedicated to what they do, and they have that firm faith and belief in it, and that's inspiring. And for me, they're the mediums or pioneers of today that we need to learn from. So again, that's why we stand with so much conviction, and we stand up on that rostrum wanting to serve the spirit world. It's not about me being in the limelight. It's about those communications, how a loved one, a mother, a father, a brother, a son, daughter can reach out to say, I still love you, I'm still around you, giving you that support. I mean, I've had a email today that, and the joy still doesn't leave me from demonstrating, because I love it, and being that person that can commune that love through, where I got an email today saying I'll cherish that video for the rest of my life in a private reading that you've given when my son grows up, I'll be able to say this is somebody else's thoughts and opinions of your dad that are so true. So it's still inspiring, it's still wonderful, and to me mediumship's magic. The whole spiritualization of the self is magic, and we need to share it, we need to take it out to the world, and that passion still runs through my veins, even donkey's years on. I mean, I'm only a puppy compared to some, but it's there, the excitement, and I'd be worried if it ever left. It would, but I also know it's not just about being the medium with the communication. Through COVID, we've worked tirelessly on things, but doing readings free of charge, doing pastoral service, just talking to people that are in that moment of despair. That it's understanding and being empathic to people's situations and having a listening ear and just being there. So it runs much deeper than just mediumship, just demonstrating it. It's a way of life and something that was instilled in me by my grandparents and family all the way through my life. And just because I've got an ability doesn't mean that I'm going to change, I'm going to become egotistical. I mean, let's be honest, I'm almost 50 years old, so you can't get more grounded, can you, really, sort of thing. I'm not a puppy. I've lived and everything else, and I'm grateful for the experience I've had. I'm grateful for everything that's happened to me, good, bad, or indifferent, because it's changed who I am. I was a firm believer that a leopard can never change its spots. I actually think that through spiritualization, growing, self-reflection, personal development, we can see the errors of our ways. We can see how we are as people, how people might have opinions. I mean, that was one of the biggest lessons through coaching. I learned that always there'll be other opinions that either don't like you or don't agree with you, and that's their right. At the end of the day, I like how I've been brought up. I like who I am. I've learned to do that, and again, not egotistical. And I'm building that confidence, and I want to share it with everybody, and I want everyone to be better than me. I want everyone to understand it. And even if I look back through the years, and I hear people's stories that they've come through the churches. Yes, I began in the churches. I've done studies for universities, took part in that. I've worked on radio stations, spreading the word, and I even had hold my hand up now. I wasn't ready for it, but that opportunity was there, and I thought it seemed a good thing. But it helped develop me, got me used to audiences, got me used to being out in public, dealing with people, meeting people. Even with some of the radio stations, they did paranormal nights, and to me it wasn't paranormal, it was normal. Let's cut all the rubbish out, let's get to the fact, and let's talk about table tipping, let's get you doing it. And I always remember, I think it was Real Radio with Glenn Hunt. He organised a paranormal evening, and he said, this is what I want you to do. I love what you do with the EVPs and everything. And I remember this DJ saying to me, and there was journalists that had just come back from Afghanistan as well, and they were saying, well, you're going to cheat, you're involved. I said, I'm doing nothing. I said, he's in charge, he's doing everything. I said, and he'll just follow my lead. And these great big journalists that have come back from Afghanistan were screaming like babies, and because the table was moving and it was answering the questions. People were asking questions on the EVP, and things were being very audible and clear, showing the intelligence. One person said, well, are you that clever, Dad? Tell me the football team and all you heard as you played it back was Burnley. Why Burnley though, son? It was incredible. Everyone was in fits of laughing, and the guy's like, how on earth is this happening? And even one of the young ladies that was there said, well, if this is true, I want my dad's name, but I want the full name. And afterwards it came, but it was 4 names together. And she said, that's my dad. He never cut it short. He always gave his 4 names. And it's so these things, as you grow, and it's almost like bringing it out to people that wouldn't normally go to a church. So there's been like a theme that's run through. Even now we do a lot of work with Sandra Champlain on her radio podcast, through films and TV stations and things. It's reaching an audience where you can make a difference. So it's really important we demonstrate to the best of our ability, spreading that word of what mediumship is, that it's about fact that we live after life. It's about fact that come back through love. There's different kinds of evidence, objective and emotional, and feeling the presence, but it's the healing and comfort it does in the information they bring. And yes, as you work and as you go through this, the development of the medium works, and there's better evidence, and as you get used to it, but the essence of the communicator is so important. That presence has got to be there, and that's the real joy of being the medium. That's the one that really makes you feel excited as you're doing it, because you're relaying their truth, their story. So yes, Kath, right at the beginning of your question that I've babbled on about for so long, it was right. The intention and authenticity and genuineness is there and has to be there.
It does. Most definitely it has to be there, because how can you look at yourself, and in years to come, when you go to the spirit world, you're going to have, I do think sometimes there will be a queue of people waiting to speak and said, you didn't represent me properly. My wife was desperately in need of a contact. She desperately wanted to know that I was here, which I promised to tell her. And what you said was a load of rubbish. And what I was telling you was nothing to what you were saying. And I do think, and Paul did teach us that years and years ago, when we go to the spirit world, don't forget all of these things. And, without being awful to people, I've seen people stand from the platform and give supposed communication from the spirit world. And it clearly isn't communication from the spirit world. And to me, that is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, that somebody's sitting there in desperate need, grieving for their loved one, and they're told, well, he wants you to get this done, and he wants you to do that, and he's told me this and he's told me that, and Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's telling them. There's no communicator there sometimes. And I think, and I feel that it is lovely to see people who are genuine and authentic in themselves. And your personality, and I know Kerry's too, both of you being how you are authentic in the presence of the spirit world. Your genuineness comes over so well when you deliver that communication, because I know you've both been to our church. I've chaired for you. I've seen people after they've had sittings and they've been blown away, and it's made a change to somebody's life. And to me, that's what it should do in a positive way. It should be that people walk away and feel better.
Absolutely. And that's when that stops happening, I know I'll walk away from the work that I'm doing, that service to the spirit world, because it's so important. We can only be as good as what the spirit world want us to be, or let us be, or what we understand. When we understand that information, it comes forward. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, when that long line of people there, that frightens the life out of me. To have somebody there saying I've misrepresented them, it's a huge thing. So for me, and we did a lecture recently online about this, that it's so important that we check the information as we get it, check it before it comes out. What does it mean? And that doesn't mean question with the mind. It's running through the soul. What's the point of this? What's the purpose of this? Where's this going? Understanding there's that humble side and somebody's reaching out through love. So again, getting the words right is really important. But I think when you mention about demonstrating at the church and coming across that way, I mean, it's nice to hear that sort of thing. We hope and pray that we do that for people as that medium. But actually just serving Longton, and I know it wasn't Gordon's original church, but the thoughts and intentions of Longton and what it represents, to use a coin of phrase, it's a flagship of the SNU, one of the biggest churches in the SNU, for me, not maybe probably the biggest, because of Gordon's connection. It's an honour, it's a privilege to stand there to demonstrate. And I remember when you said the first time I stood there, Paul, well, imagine going there for the first time, then now you got Paul there who took over from Gordon and has carried things on, and then there's you, the student of one of the first students of Paul and everything. So the pressure that's there, and it's like you've got a picture of Gordon there and a picture of his mum on the other side, and you've still got the church and the windows. It really is overwhelming, but it's an absolute privilege to be there and work and to know that it's got that history or has got that intention behind it. So for the medium demonstrating, it's a real honour, and I think we need, as mediums, to remember that we're standing in the footsteps of the pioneers where they've stood, and people will stand there after we've stood and what they've sacrificed their life to do. So to stand there and be that ambassador, to be that communicator, to touch someone's soul through that evidence, there's a huge responsibility and an importance to get it right. We know, and you know this, Kath, as people walk through those doors, and they're absolutely shattered from life experiences of grief, of major things. And again, Paul taught me this, that the grief of losing a job or losing a relationship or losing a home is just as bad as losing a loved one. So when the loved one comes through and lets them know that they're around them, and the message is, or things will be, or whichever, more positive, it's important and vital we understand what we've got, understand that the evidence is the message, and relay that properly. I mean, if I go back, I'm trying to just quickly, maths has never been a strong point of mine, but I can go back to the third year in school, and sorry, the fourth year. And I remember I was going on a school trip and I had to have vaccinations. And I remember going into the French science lab, and you remember the old earphones you had to put on with the speaker, and then you play the old great big tapes and everything. Yeah. And I was listening to them, and I remember standing up and going towards the teacher, which was Mrs. Nuttall, and I just had all these injections, and I think I had about 3 or 4 at the same time. And I remember thinking, just saying, I don't feel very well, and my head went straight through the desk in front and literally went through, and I had to be resuscitated. But in those seconds, or I don't know how long it was, it felt like seconds, or it felt like minutes, to be honest, and they said it was seconds if I get it right. All my life flashed in front of me. All my life seemed to have a significance. All these episodes and issues and events and experience all went through my mind, and it was almost a sense of relief. Then actually becoming conscious again, it was like waking up being a different person. So there's always been events through my life that have said there's been an intelligence, there's something more. So to stand on a rostrum, to be a medium, talking with a responsibility, because that's what we have as a medium, is the responsibility. Like you said, you hear all this, I'm going to be quite honest, tripe that gets said, and they mean it with the best intention, I know that. But again, the importance of getting it right, understanding what evidential mediumship is, that it brings so much comfort and healing. And through recent times of COVID, as you know, we work for Sandra on the gathering, we reach so many people that wouldn't come to a church. I mean, I've learned some new religions I never knew existed, because people are getting in touch and saying, well, I'm interested in a reading, what's it like? And we go through it, and we end up doing a reading for them, no charge. But again, it's educating people, it's bringing people to a truth and understand that there's nothing spooky about it, that it is a natural law of that universe, of that creative force, of the divine, that happens, and it's through love they choose to come back. So for me, being that medium is more than just demonstrating it. It's been the presence, it's been the essence, it's been the emotion, it's been the thoughts, it's been absolutely everything of that person, telling their story, bringing them to life and enjoying it. And as a medium, and we're in the background, it's intriguing to what's coming next, what's going to be said next, what they're going to give me. And recently, and I know it's not a good time, but I've really enjoyed my mediumship, because working on an international stage has given me the opportunity to develop further, to bring other contacts through and look at things in a different way. Even working with different cultures makes you stretch even more, because you've got to understand how they think, the recipient thinks, and what they do as a normal life. So again, standing up, being authentic, being truthful, being genuine and honest. And as good as it sounds, I can also say I've stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen, I've not got anything from the spirit world. And I know I've done it on a couple of occasions. I'd rather be truthful and honest and say that. And even when I've said it and people have laughed and said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm deadly serious, and then I've heard the spirit world, now will commence. So again, the spirit world have always been the teachers, always keep us humble. And I think it was an interview that you did, I only caught a couple of minutes about it. I think it was Simon James who said, quote me if I'm wrong, that we stand with our feet firmly on the ground, but our heads are in the heavens, or the mind's in the heavens. Yeah. That's what we do. So we're very grounded, we're very real people, nothing different about us whatsoever, not special, not unique. We have an ability that everybody has. Everyone has that psychic faculty, and mediumship is part of that needs to be trained and inherent and developed. And again, we have to be individual. That charisma, that intention, that natural ability has to be there. Then we train the rest, the formula training into it. So every medium should be different. Every medium should be demonstrating their own way, but should have that fundamental understanding of feet on the ground, of the ethics, the morals, the teachings, absolutely everything, what they represent. One of the things I don't like doing is demonstrating where I don't look smart. I always have tried a tie on or jacket on, and even where people say, well, it's online, you don't need to do that. Actually, I do. I'm representing an unseen world. I'm representing who I am. And I'm also meeting loved ones in the spirit world that are reuniting. So it's the way I was brought up. So I just need to be, even though I've got no tie on now.
I was going to say, have you not bothered tonight then?
It's a bit warm in here. I've got the heater on.
But seriously, I also know that you and Kerry are very in tune with each other when you work. So when you work, I know Kerry's in tune. When Kerry works, you're doing that. And I also know, I've never seen an argument come from it, but I also know that you can tactfully but honestly encourage each other with what you have felt hasn't been quite right for the other one.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's an honesty that not everybody is afforded.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have to be. I'm going to speak for myself because I know Kerry's got her own voice, so I have to be careful. So I'm going to choose my words carefully. No, Kerry has a purity and a truth, an intellect and a passion for what she does, and the truth is more important than anything for her. She was developed by John MacArthur and in a different place and different to Paul, but even the teaching she has is very similar. But because we have that authenticity and the moral ethics and everything else very similar, we know where we stand. And I'm going to be quite honest. That should probably kill me for saying this. But I remember going to Huddersfield Church and doing a divine service. And I'm always looking and critiquing myself. And I came after doing a divine service. It was the Christmas service, if I remember rightly. I'm cringing because she's just here. And I remember came off thinking, oh my God, I didn't represent the spirit world, my words, I got lost and everything. It was just one of them nights. And I got both barrels off her. And she says, I've never seen a more spiritual service. I've never heard a more spiritual address. I've never heard emotional contacts. And she says, get over it. What's it really about? And I said, well, I didn't get this kind of evidence. She said, so they weren't that kind of communicator. So we have that ability to speak to each other. And even where Kerry's come away, I saw, have you banged your head? Did you not hear what you've done? And I repeat it. She said, I never remember my evidence. I said, good, because you won't get a big head then. So again, we can be quite open and honest with each other, but we do it in a positive way. And she thinks I've used the wrong word, or I've said something in the wrong way that can be deemed in the wrong way. She said, you might need to change that word a little bit. And we do it for each other. So that critique keeps us in place, but also keeps us on our toes. Because like I said, we've not got egos. We do this for the sheer joy and service. And I mean, sometimes we drive hundreds of miles, 3-4 hours to do a service, then drive about 3 or 4 o'clock. We get home in the morning from your house, Kath, if we don't stay. Yes. So it's about the service. So we keep and we're very interested in it. We're very passionate about it. But we also have other parts of our lives that add to it as well. We like to be in the great outdoors. We like to see the beauty of nature. So we have similar passions and joys. And it's that really gives us that relationship with the spirit world, to be honest and genuine with it. And we're both quite honest to say, you know what, that wasn't the best. We made a muck of that one and made a right dog's dinner of that one and all the rest of it. And we're quite open with each other, but it's done in a way that's supportive to say, you know what, let's learn from this. Let's look at this. What as a person, and that's what we want to instill in our, I don't feel right saying students, but participants on courses, to say, look, this is human psychology. This is what happens, and this is what goes on, and talking that truth about it. So it's not just all mediumship. It's the psychology of it, and getting them to find themselves, develop themselves, and it's only then that they've found all that and done all that that they can truly help somebody else. Because you often hear the sense of, I want to do this to help people. Well, you've got to help yourself before you can do that. You'll know all about that from the therapies and the qualifications you've got. So where it comes to me and Kerry, we're quite open and we're quite constructive, and we don't argue about it. I mean, I nearly blurted out a story then. I've worked with people that have fissy fit to be doing better contact. Me and Kerry, I mean, sometimes when I sit and I follow Kerry, I think to myself, my God, I've got to follow that. And it's like, and she'll just say, what are you talking about? Get on with it. And vice versa. So it's always a joy to watch each other. And even at times where the limelight might be on Kerry, I want that to happen. I want that to her shine and all the rest of it, not for an egotistical sake, but actually just for her to grow that confidence, as she does for me as well. So we're very open and honest about it, and we have that loving relationship, and we have other interests, and that's what makes it work and passionate, because we enjoy it. We love what we do. You hit the nail on the head when you said, I don't think I'm out of line by saying it. Absolutely, we love it. Absolutely love it.
Because there's a joy. It's not an egotistical joy. It's not payment for you, but there's really, it's an appreciation of what you've been able to be a part of, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And also, it's I always feel it's a great honour and privilege to be part of something that is so personal. It's so personal, and particularly when you do a sitting, and it can be from the platform or over the internet as well, but you are privy to personal information, personal relationships, the uniqueness of other people, that I don't know if there's many other vocations or roles or jobs, whatever you call it. I don't think there's many other things that give you something like that, that someone's trusted you so much to give you that information and know that you are going to be authentic and deliver it in the way it's been given. Like you say, I know there's that one day we'll meet our makers and they'll all stand there with a BB gun or something, I don't know, but you know, being able to sit there and feel the presence of the spirit world. I always feel that we are and should be so honoured to be afforded the opportunity, even if it's only one contact in an evening and it's for somebody else, like say I was watching you work. If I'm watching you work or watching Kerry work and the whole of the congregation is aware of the emotion of that one contact, even if it is just one contact, it is such an honour and a privilege to be in the presence, isn't it, of the spirit world and the power that that can give. It's like no other, is it?
Exactly, and I'm glad you've used that privilege word, because it is an absolute privilege to be in the essence and that power of that divine source, relaying that information, and I can't put it into words. It brings such a joy to be there, and it's not a joy to demonstrate. It's a joy to be able to reach out and give somebody hope, to inspire somebody, to raise somebody's spirits, to bring that comfort, bring that healing, for them to carry on another day. It's a marvelous feeling that you have, but again, it's a grounded feeling as well. It's one of those that we know there's more, absolutely, sort of thing. So again, because you're touching on somebody's life, you're touching on somebody's love, and it makes you think of your own, what you have got, what you may not have got, and makes you look at life completely differently. And I don't care who you are or whoever argues this point, but being a medium changes who you are completely. The essence of you, the present. Put me.
It should do.
It should absolutely. Okay, that's fine. I thought, oh my God, yeah, absolutely, it should do. It should really do. It should test the values. It should really embody the ethics, the intention, absolutely everything there, because you get to see life at its best, at its worst, and both of them affect you. I mean, some of the things that you see how people have lived and suffered or gone through. We live, I think, a sheltered life in the UK. I know there's traumatic experiences, we have hardship, we have pain, but yet when you go to different cultures and you see different forms of it, it really opens your eyes to think, you know, we're lucky. We're lucky we don't have this type of crime or situations around us, and we're lucky to have the lives we have and the upbringing we have and the family we have, and the loves we have, the children we have, because at any moment we can lose the whole lot. And when you touch somebody that's lost these things, that power of emotion that moves through you, that you're relaying to somebody, has to move you, has to change you. Yes. There's something really wrong if it doesn't. Really wrong.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, how many times would we as individuals feel we can go up to a complete stranger and lay bare our soul, which is what the spirit will do, really, don't they?
Absolutely.
You know, they trust the medium, and they lay it on all for us, all before us, and then we express it in the way that they wish to be expressed, not how we want it. And I think that's a huge difference in someone who hasn't properly developed, shall we
Mm.
say, if we put it like that.
Absolutely.
A medium that hasn't developed fully hasn't, in my opinion, and I know that you and Kerry and Mitch, we feel the same, they haven't developed themselves.
Correct.
That awareness of self and that responsibility of their role hasn't really been accepted, and you have to accept it, don't you? You've taken us from being a young boy where your experiences were a little unnerving at times, unknown to you, no one really able to help you, to now being a medium who, let's face it, you and Kerry are sought after, well sought after. People respect your mediumship. And why is that? Because you're honest, you're authentic, and you're humble.
I have to take your word for it, Kath.
And
No,
I have to tell people this, because they won't know this about you. Oh no, what's coming up is going to say. We have a game here that our son bought, and it's called Cards Against Humanity. And if you've never played it, it really, really does test your levels of how low will you go. And it also speaks volumes about your sense of humour and how macabre you can be, and the naughty side of everybody. And I have to tell everybody, he's got a brilliant poker face. He sits there as if butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, and he has the most horrific answers in that game. And we sat, the four of us, one evening. Of course, you and Kerry hadn't played before.
No, we were shell shocked. We've
say
been
the
scared for life.
And we were in the bad books the next day, weren't we? Because we
were.
kept our daughters awake with laughing at each other. But you have to let loose sometime or another, don't you?
Yeah, it's absolutely important. We're normal people. We have a laugh. We have a sense of humour. We enjoy life. We like to indulge in the better pleasures of life, of going out restaurants and stuff like that. But friendship is a massive thing, and especially in the medium's life, because it can be so lonely. So having evenings like that where you can let your hair down, not that I've got any left, it's vitally important, because you need to be who you are. You need to be, and I remember that night thinking, they've really made a card game like this? It's horrific. And I remember Kerry going, oh, and going bright red, reading some of the cards.
Yes.
But guess who won? Kerry.
Yes.
Guess who? And all these answers, it's like, really? You understand that? I had to even ask what some of them were, and she's like, well, no, I'm only joking. But I think you need to be who you are. You need to be who you are. I mean, I came from a small market town in the backwaters of Lancashire, and I'm experiencing life, and it's cultivated me, made me who I am, and still learning from it, but enjoying life. What it's about is finding that balance that allows you to be who you are, enjoy life. I mean, I've been very privileged over the last couple of years to go to certain countries and things like that. But for me, I still need to pinch myself, because at the end of the day, I would have never have seen these things or experienced it if it wasn't for the spirit world. And yes, we all have dreams, but actually thinking it's going to happen, and doing these, having these experiences, it educates you. It makes you understand things at a deeper level. So having fun, having those late nights, as you said, at your house, you completely corrupted us. It's vitally important, because we need to let our hair down. We're just normal people with senses of humour and everything else, and we have needs in life of wanting fun and to enjoy life. And I think we're entitled to that. I think it's a valuable part.
Yes, this life, surely to goodness, with all of its problems, all of its troubles, has to have elements that we enjoy, doesn't it? That
Absolutely.
We cherish. And as you know, one aspect of my work is to take funeral services for people. And I am reminded in many aspects of life that it is short, actually. It's not a great deal of time, but it doesn't make any difference how long a person lives for in this life. It's what we do with it that counts, isn't it? It's what we do. And I know that this, where we are at the moment, has taken the wind out of many people's sails, all the hopes and dreams that we thought we'd had. But I think that most people would be inspired by the fact that you and Kerry went, nope, this isn't going to bother us. We're going to get on with it. And I know you've got you sitting there in your posh office, and you have made the best of it.
We've got to. We can't sit in the chair and cry. I think everyone's gone through that. We're not exempt from it. We've sat there and thought life is changing so much. And as a spiritualist, having that belief, I'm probably going to say something now that's going to upset people. I'm not one of these love and light brigade and wearing a wolf t-shirt and all the rest of it. For me, spiritualism is about change. It's about changing who you are, learning who you are, developing who you are, but also going out to the world and spreading that truth, going out to the world and helping inspire people, not telling them how to live their life, but saying there's a truth here and it's up to you if you want to listen. So in a way, COVID and going online has helped us spread that word, and whether it's just got people to challenge their thoughts or whether it's got people thinking about it, whether people have decided now to come more into spiritualism or mediumship or look at it, then that's a win. It's a win-win because we're opening our minds and opening people's minds to it. So again, for me, working online is not new for a lot of mediums, but to demonstrate and have the courage weekly in front of 500 people, at first was daunting. Then it's like, well, you know what? I actually enjoy this. There's no difference. And with the feedback we were getting and with the readings we were doing, we thought we're meeting a whole lot of new people and spreading that word. And actually, when I look back at the journey that I've had, it's always been like that. Working on breakfast shows on radios, working and meeting for children's charities for other radio stations, working with reporters, stepping foot into the spiritualist churches, to working abroad. It's about meeting people that may not have the opportunity of understanding or even knowing about spirituality that we're reaching. And like I said, I've learned so much more of religions I never knew existed. So again, I've been educated to it, and I feel that's an important bit as well. So the idea of sitting in front of a camera frightens the life out of me. And it's taken me probably 3 months to get used to it. In the beginning, it was like, oh my God, look at you, Kath, don't look at the camera, don't think the camera's there, sort of thing. But now it's quite comfortable, and where we do a lot of demonstrating and teaching, we try to have a little bit of fun with it. So you see the joy between us, you see how much we love each other, and we want to bring that into it. And to quote somebody recently, being online on Zoom is a different animal. You need to be more animated, you need to have more of a presence, you need to be clear, and it's learning all these new skills, and really it enhances the things that I've done on the SD1, SD4 about public speaking and everything else, because you've got to do that. You've got to have that presence, you've got to have that personality to come across. You can't be that wet rag in the background sort of thing that's all love and light, but yet we need to be there, we need to be promoting. So and it's funny, because even before, when COVID, and I think it was in March where we started to go into lockdown, we already from the end of 2019 had a lot of courses already built on the shelf ready to go, and we thought, when we're going to fit this in, why have we done that? Then all of a sudden everything hit. Okay, let's just go with this. But even to where we were quite sensitive that people are being furloughed, people are losing their jobs, people are worried, we said we're going to hold back a little bit and just do a bit at a time and just put things in, because at the end of the day people are losing their incomes and everything else. So again, it's having a wider picture. So giving people, like on the Sunday gathering, a weekly bit of inspiration or hope through running a different kind of service that's non-denominating, or whichever the word is, denominal, whatever. I'm struggling with word. Is that really a word?
Denominational.
That's the one I'm looking for. Okay, I was making words up. So actually reaching out to people and doing it in a fun way with music and videos, and having the 5 of us with different personalities come on and mixing, matching and doing things brings a uniqueness that people have now started to rely on. And even where they said, I hope you carry on after COVID and this lockdown, and we've got every intention to do that, because it's bringing people a faith, it's bringing people support, it's bringing people comfort, and where we've received messages, we can't wait, it's a long time till the next Sunday, it is because it's giving them something that I think that where they can't get to the churches, even where we have people from the UK and everywhere else coming on there, because they're missing their churches, they're missing their services, they're missing that education, they're missing that spirituality within the life. So it's doing something to what was I going to say, bring to the world. And you should know about that, because it's you this Sunday. Drop that one in.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you and Miss Kerry McLeod. So it's
me and Kerry. Yes, me and Kerry.
And it's nice to see you demonstrate. It's nice to see a fresh face demonstrate and demonstrate how it should be done. Clear, clinical, precise, proficient. And it's really nice. And to watch you on the Canberra service as well, it was great to watch it. I love watching mediums. I love watching people that inspire me, because even now I think, I want a bit of that. I want to learn that. Why do I not get that? And I bring that to the spirit world through that intention. So when you worked with us the other week, it was a sheer joy to work with a friend, but also to have somebody with the same caliber and quality of mediumship out there working. We're good at taking negative.
Yes, yes, we are very good. Compliments don't come so easy, do they?
I know.
They definitely don't. But I think that I've always felt that our life experience has a lot of influence about the types of contacts that we have. So as you've gone along, as you've travelled here, there and everywhere, your awareness of other cultures, your awareness of what other people do in their lives, as you said, religions and all of those different things, you become more comfortable with, don't you? So the spirit world, in their wisdom and intelligence, will go, he knows that, we'll use that. Isn't it fantastic?
Absolutely. And it's funny you should mention that. Denise Litchfield from Australia said to us, it was quite funny, you're getting a lot of Secret Service, FBI, CIA agents and all these people. And I was laughing, and Kerry said, that program comes in handy, doesn't it? We've been watching Designated Survivor. And it's almost, we're in the White House, and it's like, oh, the president. It's like, so all these contacts, all these memories that they've had and where they've met people, it's really useful. But it is the experience of life. And I know we're joking, but there is a serious side, that there's one group of people we've been lucky enough to demonstrate for, that's helping parents heal, and nobody wants ever to be in that club where they've lost a child. And when the children come, I've got to admit, me and Kerry, when we did that first one, were absolutely nervous. We were absolutely petrified, because we thought, this is children. This is going to be emotional. This is going to be right. This is going to be so pinpoint. It's got to be right. We've got to be at the best that we can be. So we felt under pressure because of that responsibility of talking to a parent about their child. But the fun we had, the children that came through, the evidence was heartbreaking. It really does open your mind. And like I said before about in the UK or places, we get used to our own culture. We're used to certain things, but when you go to a different culture and some of the passing harrowing circumstances and things like that, it really is heartbreaking. And to meet these extraordinary people that have gone through that and are still here is commendable. I can't bring words to it, and neither would I try. But to deliver the responsibility of a demonstration to them was really one for us, very privileged and special. But the pressure we put ourselves under, because once we started, everything was okay, and the contacts were very well received and powerful and emotional. But afterwards, there was a big sigh of relief, thinking, you know what, we learnt so much from that and took in so much. But as we get to know these parents and meet these parents in person, You learn their journeys and their experience, and it makes you think as well that we've never really lived, we've never really gone through those things that have created them into who they are, and you still see them laughing and smiling, and words can't comprehend that they carry on. They're very, very special people, and how they support each other across the world is absolutely phenomenal, because there's so many groups, and I've never met a group yet that wasn't positive, that isn't willing to share and look at afterlife, is looking at mediums, and they've got their own caliber of mediums that are vetted and tested. And I know we've both been through that. You've done things and we've done things, and to go through those processes, you can see that the responsibility a real medium has. People's lives are broken, people's lives have been devastated, and how they can stand up and say they've forgiven somebody for taking their child or responsible for the passing of their to me is amazing, that they find the strength to do that. And that's real growth and reflection and spirituality in my eyes.
It is. We call it the F word, forgiveness.
Well, yeah, I thought where you were going to go. I thought, where are you going with that, Kath? It's forgiveness. We need to learn from them.
Forgiveness, I think sometimes we can forgive in our own minds. We don't always have to verbalize it to the person we're forgiving.
Correct.
Because in doing so, we can carry on then, can't we? We can grow from that. And I remember years and years and years ago when, for those who don't know, we've got 4 children and the youngest are twins, and Georgia, who has difficulties, went to special school. And I said to Paul, do you want to come with me to the Christmas concert, well, nativity play? And he said, oh yeah, okay then. So he came with me, and we sat there, and it's a place called Horton Lodge that she went to, and predominantly I would say there was a lot of children there with physical and mental disabilities, and all these little kiddies came in, and it's a primary school, and they'd all got walkers, or they'd got sticks, they'd got calipers on their legs. Some of them were carried in. Mary was carried in, and the staff were using sign language as well. And me and Paul were fighting over how many tissues we could gather together, because both of us were just, it was just heartbreaking, but also so inspiring when you've got a 4-year-old who insists on walking through the hall on her walker with her what's called Piedro boots, which are quite clumsy and heavy. And she was determined that she was going to get to the front, and she was determined that she was going to deliver her speech with the teacher right beside her, mouthing the words so that she could carry on. And Paul said to me, it's a different world. I don't know how you do it. But it's your world, isn't it? And when you're in that world, no matter how difficult your world is, and I know that you have had, I don't deride anybody's difficulties, because everybody's difficulties are 100% difficult for them. Absolutely. In that moment. Like grief is 100% of the time. It doesn't come and go. It's there, isn't it? And I think that what you two have done over the few weeks that we've been in lockdown, and before that, trying to get people to see the honesty is important, the authenticity is important, because we are meeting people all over the world who are grieving 100%. They are dealing with their difficulties, which are 100% difficult to them, aren't they? Absolutely. So, and I think that we as people grow because we learn from them, don't we?
Absolutely. There's a true saying, isn't there? You can't judge anybody until you've stood in their shoes. You don't know what somebody else's difficult moments are. And we should never do anything to aid or make those difficulties even more, and to go through and listen to some stories that you told, like you've just mentioned. We go through life with blinkers on. It's our life. It's all about us. And when we get our eyes open to this world that we don't really exist or want to think or even think that's there, it really does touch you. And that's what I mean. As a medium, you come into all these walks and cultures and ways of life that, like we said before, you have to change. There's something wrong with you if you don't change. And again, we can't, like I say, judge anybody because we don't understand their difficulty. We could have the same issue and problem, but it's going to affect us differently. We can't. One person's grief might be somebody else's hard time, but it affects us so differently. We're all emotive and mental and physical. Everything happens and works through us in different ways. And as that medium, you've got to display that in the contacts. You've got to bring that through in the contacts and be as accurate as you can. But when you see it and feel it and live it, whether it's something you see here like you were talking about, or when you in that moment of the essence of that's what really hits you. And to have that awareness and bring that truth forward, you've got to be a strong character. You've got to be strong mentally, emotionally and physically to bring that through. And it's hard to touch those emotions at times and thoughts because we're not used to it. So your mediumship stretches, but to see the things you've just mentioned, it's not a pity for them, it's an inspiration. You see how positive these people are and how inspirational they can be to make changes within you. It's inspiring and really moving. They know no different. They get on with life, but yet we complain about the most trivials of things, and it brings that reality home, doesn't it?
Yes.
Really does.
Only yesterday I saw a video from the college that Georgia used to go to of a young man, and he got up out of his chair, and he must be 16 plus because it's a college, and he walked with difficulty, but he walked from the chair to the sofa.
Wow.
And you could hear like the whooping and hollering. And I remember that when Georgia first stood up, when she first walked, being told that that would never happen was so exciting. I rang Mitch because he was at work, because it was so exciting. And those things, those moments in our lives that touch us forever, that we never ever forget, are moments that the spirit will bring through as well, aren't they? Those Absolutely. Are the moments that make you as the medium go, wow, not for you, but for them, that they were this person, they were this amazing living being in this world. And for us, it is our duty, I feel, to carry on in this world, to live like that, to have our own wow moments and think, wow, I can't believe that happened. That's amazing, isn't it? And I know, I'm not going to go into anything personal, but I know that you've had your wow moments and that you are an incredibly strong character. Would you face it?
Yes,
I think you're stronger than people imagine that you are, because you're softly spoken, because you're not a shouter, because you're not, oh, look at me. People think that you're quiet, and yes, you are, but there's a very strong, determined character under all that quietness. And I know that the worst time, don't ever speak to Phil when he's quiet, because that means he's hungry.
Absolutely, that's right. Kerry knows that. Kerry's laughing, sort of thing. Yeah. When I go quiet, I'm usually hungry. But no, I think from a child, that's probably been my strongest quality that's got me through everything. I'm one of those people that watches and learns and does learn from it, and I take everything into the heart and everything into the soul and reflect on it, and that's who I am, and that's why I enjoyed training as a coach and getting the accreditations as a coach, because it really made sense to me. And to help people through that. I might not be the best educated person, I might not be the best speaker out there, I'm not the most elegant, but I want to walk my walk and talk my talk, and I want to do what I do. And that strength has been taught to me by my family. My grandfather and his father received MBEs for service to the country in coal mining and disasters, fighting for the country. My father has been a teacher from grammar school up. And again, for me, those have been the inspirations in my life. Even my grandmother being volunteers through the war and even after the war, always been big inspirations to me. But they weren't powerful. And I've only found out recently my grandfather was a trade unionist, met the Queen, met the Prime Minister, and argued through the coal dispute. And to see the newspaper clippings and to see some of the, and listen to the stories of it and everything, he was such a quiet man, never said two words. The experience I had of him, but yet he inspired me so much. So when I hear the stories of the hardship and the things he never took, I mean, we all in the UK remember when the coal slag heaps came down over the school. He was the first one in, and the emotion I feel as I mentioned that, and where he saw things he shouldn't, it sort of creates an inspiration in you that you can be a quiet person, but yet you can affect so many people's lives. And I always remember him walking down the lane where he used to live, always in front of me, and just turned to make sure I was all right. But he showed me a quality of life that you don't have to shout, you don't have to scream, you don't have to retaliate, you just be who you are. And that speaks volumes for it. I always remember, I mean, I'm being on a serious note, but my grandfather also used to walk down the side of the canal and said, oops, you're falling in. So again, he had that sense of humour, but he taught me how to swim and things. So you've got all these personal traits you've mentioned, and again, I'm trying to make sense of them and talk them through, but we all have different qualities, different strengths, and I suppose I am strong-minded. I suppose I have got a strong will and character. I've never really accepted help, even through my day job. I've worked my way through, even through this mediumship and spirituality, I've worked my way through. Yes, I've had helping hands now and again of support, but ultimately I've had to do it myself, same as Kerry, same as you, same as Mitch, same as every medium. Medium's life is about service, sacrifice, hardship. It's not about celebrity, wealth, money. It's about, I mean, Gordon didn't have a great deal of money, I believe. I never knew the man, but his story is completely unique and different. But yet, we all want things in life. We all want to be the best and wish I was the best speaker and the best demonstrator. And I wish I could reach out to more people, but it's from a purity inside of service, not from anything else. But that's my character. I don't want to stop, and I won't stop. I love it. I love what I do.
But that's what comes across. So you're doing what you aim to do. And it's
don't
now,
like taking compliments, do we?
would you believe it's now turned 9 o'clock?
Yes, I've watched the time in the corner and think, oh my God, we've got
right, okay. So I'm going to say thank you to the Facebook, and I'm going to stop the live streaming. So good night, Facebook. That's Facebook done. I shall stop the recording.